We all go a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Yes, this 1960 game changer and absolute stunner of a film changed the cinematic landscape forever. Horror film would not really be the genre it is today without Psycho, in my opinion. But the curious thing about Psycho isn't just its touch upon the film world, because Psycho is a film that we have seen featured and referenced in commercials, including this amazing commercial with Elvira, all the way to movie parodies. Of course, if you're like me, you're immediately thinking Phantom of the Paradise or Mel Brooks' High Anxiety. Two very underrated movies, by the way. Well, some of those are probably the better known references. I want to talk about Psycho's connective tissue to 4 key music videos from the early to mid 1980s. Tonight, come with me as we explore Norman Bates, the Bates Motel, Alfred Hitchcock, and Psycho, all in the wonderful world of 80s music videos.
My name is Norman Bates. I'm just a normal guy.
Speaking of Norman, this 1981 single and music video, I think, are the prime one to start this list off. First of all, just look at it. Look at this amazing and absolutely sumptuous looking video. The black and white cinematography here is, I think, some of the absolute best I have ever seen in the format. It is absolutely a feast for the eyes. And no wonder, because this video was directed by the great Brian Grant. Now, Brian Grant might not be a household name, but if you know anything about music video history, Brian Grant is a big deal. This guy is an absolute maverick. In addition to directing Norman Bates, he actually worked with Landscape again for the video for Einstein a Go-Go. He directed Kids in America by Kim Wilde. He did Saved by Zero by The Fix, and he did Physical by Olivia Newton-John. Physical is probably the thing he's best known for, but in my opinion, and isn't this always the case with fame, right? If you really want to see the measure of this artist, go a little bit deeper. You don't even have to go that deep, because even something like Kids in America has some great little dark touches, like the hand dragging on the window blinds with the viscous fluid dripping down the guy's hand. Grant's one of those guys. I think he's a really cool director who's always really, you can tell he's a thinking director, that he's always trying to add some kind of image and approach that gives a sense of depth and texture to a music video. It's never going to be just like somebody miming to their song. And you definitely get that here with Norman Bates. According to the band's website, this music video took only 2 days to shoot, which is insane, especially given the shot list. I would have to guess they mapped this out tightly to get this much footage and this much beautifully, really well shot footage in such a short amount of time. When you find out that in addition to Brian Grant, apparently some of the crew that worked behind the scenes on this video had just wrapped up work on John Landis's American Werewolf in London. So a little cool connective tissue there. In addition to just the visuals of this video that Grant does, is the way that he has kind of permutated the Hitchcock influence in Psycho to a very European landscape and a very gothic horror kind of feel. I mean, even though Alfred Hitchcock was British, he'd worked in Hollywood for years, and Psycho to me feels very much like an American film. But here, with the Norman Bates video, we have, even just with the setting, we have exchanged the humble family-run Bates Motel in the South Californian desert with this gorgeous gothic-looking manor and estate. And then on top of that, we don't have any slashers. There's no slashing in this music video. Most things, I would say that like 98% of anything that's going to reference Psycho is going to bring up the shower scene, which is understandable. Of course, it's iconic. It's absolutely iconic and gave, I think, probably a lot of the censors an absolute stroke. But in here, explicit sinister purpose is kind of excised and exchanged for something a little more nebulous, a little more kind of actually ghostly. Because like when we see the band kind of litter throughout this estate, they are vaguely menacing. They seem almost sort of wrath-like, and complete with the almost incantation type chorus and the refrain of
My name is Norman Bates. I'm just a normal guy. My name is Norman Bates.
our poor Marion Crane proxy is just trying to warm up and gather her bearings here. The closest thing we really get to Norman is Richard James Burgess, who's one of the vocalists for Landscape. He has such a great face. I think the band all look great, but Burgess in particular, seeing him wrapped up in the motherly type shawl at the end is a pretty effective image. And one that I think is enhanced further by being next to our Marion Crane, who is Pamela Stevenson. What? I have loved this video for years, and even I did not find out until, I want to say, like, maybe 2 years ago.
Mother! Oh my God!
Now, Pamela Stevenson, for those of you who may not know, is known probably for different things by different countries. If you are somebody who is in the UK, especially of a certain age, you probably remember her more for being in Not the 9 O'Clock News, which was this comedy sketch show in the late 70s that had also like Rowan Atkinson and people like that in the cast. Pamela did this really great parody of Kate Bush. For the record, apparently Kate Bush was totally fine with it. So nobody come for Miss Pamela. She is a friend, not a foe. In the States, Pamela Stevenson's probably best known for either being on SNL. She was a member of the Saturday Night Live cast, but she's also in films like Superman 3. But in the early 1990s, Pamela quit acting. She quit comedy and pursued a career into psychology. She even got her doctorate from the California Graduate Institute. Pamela Stevenson's amazing. And you know what else is amazing? This music video. And Landscape. Real quick about the band. I will say Landscape is one of those bands, they came from a jazz background, but like a lot of bands in the punk and post-punk era use that sort of fertile, kind of rebellious energy to truly do something. You know, the whole thing about punk originally is DIY, do it yourself, meaning make your own art. Don't adhere to whatever like stodgy rules and, you know, and status quo levels of like what is successful, what is good, what is popular. You exile all of that to make something that is yours and something that you're truly into. So we got this band that had a background in jazz, but also were very much open and incorporated elements of synthesizers, electronic, rock, pop, songs dealing with theme ranging from sort of the fun and silly to, but also quite serious. I think they're a really interesting band, and if you're somebody that likes your music a little quirky but with some heft to it, definitely check out Landscape. Now, from the sublime to the ridiculous, we have our second video, Backstabber by the Hyts.
But as soon as they leave, you sing a different tune.
That's Hyts with a Y, not an I. Why? Because the 80s are gonna 80s. Now, unlike our last video, and actually the two after this video has absolutely no musical connection to Psycho in any sort of capacity. But what it lacks lyrically in terms of connective tissue, it more than makes up for having perhaps the biggest glow up we've ever seen of Miss Mama Bates. Backstabber does not give us any, we don't have Norman. The closest thing we really have to Marion even is the Hyts lead singer, who has a great mustache. And you know, I will say this, it's easy to look back at older videos and make fun, which people sometimes like to do and be like, oh, so-and-so looks dated, which it's like, well, everything is of its time. I don't think dated is a bad thing. I don't think it's ever a bad thing. I mean, are you going to listen to Chopin and be like, oh, that sounds dated? Well, yeah, it sounds dated. Does it mean it's bad? No, of course not. This dude is giving it his all. He looks cold in his little towel, and he's actually, ironically, probably the most naked of everybody. He's surrounded by beautiful dancing women, but he's the most naked. Not since the Tube Sports Fans video have we seen such a commitment. In lieu of Norman Bates, we get interpretive, sort of modern dancing, Mother Bates dancing around him with knives. There's a Bloody Mary spilled in the bathtub. We get which I don't think he's supposed to be an Old West looking ghost, but to me it looks like an Old West looking ghost playing electric guitar and doing a spinneroonie. This video has a lot. We got an Alfred Hitchcock stand-in, a blonde vampire, because why not? Why not? Did Psycho have vampires? Did they have... No, it didn't have vampires. Certainly didn't have any beautiful blonde vampires. If necessity is the mother of invention, then creativity is, in this case, the big, fat, rolled up joint. This brand of particular visual madness we get here with Backstabber could have only come from one very specific music video auteur, and that is the man Joe Day. Like Brian Grant, Day was a very prolific and very talented music video director. Joe Day was absolutely a sterling example of a music video maverick. In fact, before Backstabber, he was already very established in the scene, both as a creative video artist, well as director. He was also a founding member of Video West, which was a program that combined political journalism as well as musical journalism, and would incorporate also comedy skits and interviews and live music. So something very cool. Actually, I kind of think in this day and age, it probably wouldn't be a bad thing for us to have something of that caliber, an independent thing that's combining art and politics and journalism, because even when we don't want the two or three to be connected, they most certainly are. Now, the thing about Joe Day and his musical video style is Joe Day had a very experimental approach, and very much, I don't know if pop art was something that was a direct influence on him personally, but I feel like his style has very much kind of a pop art vibe to it, which I think is very cool. He was clearly a guy that I think had a boundless visual imagination as far as how to approach music videos. Surrealism is often the name of the game with a lot of these videos, which is why there's such a rich thing to explore. Joe Day was one of those people that was, I think, completely fearless with diving into such waters. And to further kind of just hone in on how legitimate a video artist this guy is, Joe Day's video for Commander Cody's 2 triple cheese and side order of fries, which he made back in 1980, would go on to become a permanent part of the music video collection at the Museum of Modern Art, which this means a Commander Cody music video, which features, yes, cheeseburgers, of course, is next to music videos like Coil's Tainted Love, which is a powerful work. It's Coil. We love Coil. The Residents and Graham Whiffler's work for 1 Minute Movies, and even Penny Lane by the Beatles. So very cool. I love the fact that somebody at MoMA was that forward thinking with music video as a format. Then and now, it's still a format that is fighting to be preserved and I think critically respected. Joe Day would go on to work a lot with Greg Kihn, the late great Greg Kihn. I love Greg Kihn. I think everybody should love Greg Kihn.
And I say, they don't ride like that anymore. They just don't ride like that anymore.
They made several videos together, most notably the one for Jeopardy, which is one of those music videos that I saw as a tiny child, and it absolutely traumatized me. It is kinder trauma. Great, sort of very lo-fi practical effects for body horror, but there's that line where, at least for me, when body horror practical effects look so grotty that it actually is more disturbing than if it looked real. Also see Herschel Gordon Lewis's The Gore Gore Girls. There's some stuff in there that I think is so queasy, even though it's so obviously fake to the point where it actually becomes surrealism. Which is why I love H.G. Lewis. Now, going back to Backstabber and the band, the Hyts were an LA-based rock band that, listening to some of their stuff, particularly this album, they only did 2 albums. Their first album, they kind of come across a bit like a West Coast version of 38 Special. That's not inherently a bad thing. You know, if you kind of love that like early 80s kind of bar rock sort of vibe to it, I don't think they were like an outstanding band, but I certainly don't think they were like a terrible band by any means. The song itself is a classic. I'm gonna get you, person that betrayed me rock song. But the fact that this video went in such a completely alternate direction with that, I adore so much. It's silly, it's cheesy, and it's so much fun. With anybody else that wasn't like Joe Day, you would have just had like probably like a sexy Playboy Playmate type in like a leather miniskirt and just like she-devil kind of woman, and he's not gonna put up with that. And instead we get this. It's it's kind of the things that I think just make life worth living. So thank you, Joe Day, and thank you, Hyts. let's go to something that has actual direct connective tissues, direct ties to the franchise with Scream of Love by Carter Burwell. This 1986 song and video was directed by Danny Kleinman. Scream of Love as a video has some of Kleinman's sort of visual hallmarks that you would see in his other work. In particular, his collabs with artists like Thomas Dolby and the video for Hyperactive and Fleetwood Mac's Big Love. And what I'm thinking of in particular is this sort of visual cube type setup where you have a rectangular shape that's got images on different sides of the cube. Seeing imagery like that and this whole interplay with different Normans showing up, and here we actually get the OG Norman Bates, we get Anthony Perkins, the man, the legend, and as well as the sort of haunted apparition of Carter Burwell here, looking very cool to the point where there's a chill in the room. This video also gives us some great sort of lighting. You can tell that Kleinman's really creating some good, simple, deceptively simple, but very striking visuals. And he's good about sort of holding back in places, giving us sort of more traditional sort of film type shots set in the earthly realm, and then contrasting that with stuff that's definitely a little more sort of out of bounds and a little more almost kind of supernatural feeling, which is a little different for Psycho. But again, kind of like with the Norman Bates video by Landscape before it, I think it's always a cool thing to see what a different director can do with influence and sort of put their own sort of thumbprint and spin and taste for horror. We do naturally have a Hitchcockian blonde. Now, I don't 100% have this confirmed, but according to an article I saw on Dread Central, there was speculation that she is played by model and actress Shawn Weatherly. The resemblance is certainly there, and it does to me. I kind of hope it is, because if it is, this means this woman has not only worked alongside the great Anthony Perkins, but also David Hasselhoff. Ma'am, I am jealous. The song itself, it's moody, it's tasty, and it feels basically kind of like a late night filled with seedy promises. I adore it. Something else I adore is how Carter Burwell got the gig. Because not only did he do the song that's, you know, part of the film soundtrack, he did the whole soundtrack. And I love how he got this job, because so basically when Anthony Perkins got the offer and this opportunity to not only be in Psycho 3, but he wanted to direct it, he wanted to do a Psycho 3 that wasn't like Psycho 2 or the original. He wanted to do something different. And honestly, it shows. Psycho 3 is great. I think actually Psycho's that very intensely rare film that has good sequels all around. I don't think there's a bad Psycho sequel. Remake's a different story.
Yes, Mother. It's me.
But the Psycho sequels are all really great and have, each one has something different to offer. For the soundtrack, he wanted something different. When he saw the Coen brothers film Blood Simple, that soundtrack was the one that hit him and connected with him, and he was like, I need that guy for Psycho 3, and he reached out to Carter Burwell. And at the time, Carter had a day job, which gives me hope. I think it gives all of us hope as creative. Everybody has to start with a day job. That is normal. It's part and parcel of the process. It all tracks though. When you listen to the soundtrack that he did for Blood Simple, which has a sort of melancholy and at times ominous portent about it that I think is really beautiful, I can completely understand why Anthony Perkins was like, this is what I want for Psycho 3. Now, how we got Scream of Love, because Carter is a composer. We're talking traditional film soundtrack works, not MTV type singles here. Universal wanted a pop song. They wanted to tap into that MTV demographic, as well as basically get even more kind of advertising for the film via a pop video and music video. Perkins, though, stuck to his guns, because they originally were wanting like a pop rock person to do this, and which really wouldn't have fit for the vibe of the film nor the soundtrack. Perkins and Burwell worked together, and Scream of Love is kind of the compromise. Doing research on this, it looks like at one point there were talks of trying to get either Danny Elfman or even Stan Ridgway from All of Voodoo to voice it and do the singing. Either one of those did not happen. But I think that worked out because instead what we get is something that is very much in keeping with the film. It's a great piece of music. It has that great David Sanborn saxophone, which kind of makes me think a little bit of Silk Stockings for some reason, that USA show. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sanborn's a player, and unlike saxophones and a lot of other 80s pieces of music, this isn't overproduced, this isn't gutted and shinied out like you would hear in, say, like, you know, something by Glenn Frey. It's a great evocative piece. I think Scream of Love is fantastic. And, you know, from here on out, this all led to Carter Burwell having the great career he is now. I mean, nowadays he's one of the really respected film composers, and actually would end up working a whole lot more with the Coen brothers. So it's a great story. Psycho 3 is a great film, great video. What's not to love? Well, actually, there's one more thing to love, because our next and last video is one for the books. Our fourth and last video and song is, for my money, the most effective, and is definitely the most effective at bringing in that creep factor that is perhaps the most authentic to the original source material. I am talking about 1981's Bates Motel by the Hitmen. Unlike the other three videos I featured, I could not track down a director for this one, which actually is such a bummer because this is a wonderful video. It is shadowy. There's some really cool references to other films here, and not just Psycho. There are copious nods to Psycho. We have a photo of Alfred Hitchcock. We have a stuffed row with the birds. We have the literal Bates Motel, well, not the literal, but we have a literal Bates Motel neon sign. But we also have so much more going on here with this video. The way this is shot and the world that it takes place, you could almost smell dust and mold, maybe something a little more coppery scented going on here. It's absolutely just, the atmosphere in this video is tangible. Even if we had access to a better quality version of this video. Two of the things that makes researching music videos, especially of a certain vintage, really hard is that nobody really thought in terms of preservation. These were often viewed as just like about as valuable as commercials, even though a lot of music videos, I mean, to me, these are short films. You know, their artistic merit and worth is very obvious, but they weren't treated like that. And hence, that's why with a lot of them, you can't even find a director credit. This isn't like a movie that's going to have like a lot. I mean, some videos would have credits, a lot of them didn't. So you kind of have to make do with what you have. In Bates Motel, we do have not so much a Norman proxy, but we have a variation of Norman here played by Ben Watkins, lead singer of the Hitmen. Ben Watkins is movie good here. He is basically between Watkins' sort of natural, sort of strange physical beauty. And when I say strange, I don't mean that at all negatively. I mean, if anything, I think he's a very striking looking man. He has a very compelling, lovely face about him, which is kind of perfect because that's when you think of Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates. Perkins looked like the boy next door in a way. He has this like boyish good looks to him, and he's very beautiful in a way, but there's something behind the eyes in that role that he brings that just gives you that layer, that depth, and that also big question mark of like, what's going on? Ben Watkins brings that to this. He brings a real intensity here that doesn't come across as phony or cheesy or hammy that I think you would see with other bands doing this, and certainly another director doing this. He's absolutely just captivating to watch, and I think brings a genuine menace. And that combined with the other band members are used kind of in these sort of roles as sort of like police investigators that are going through, putting two and two together. They're going through basically footage that was found at a crime scene. There's a lot of very dark implications. I'm actually kind of amazed because MTV, as much as people like, I think get clouded with nostalgia over MTV, even at its quote unquote heyday, MTV had a reputation for censoring or at least putting videos that were viewed as a little too sort of forward or edgy on minimal play. I mean, I don't think this got a lot of play. To my knowledge, I think the most play this video got was when Elvira did her Halloween special. All the more reasons to love Elvira, by the way.
I love it.
At one point, we see during that great montage, when the song is kind of at its most frenetic sounding, we see a quick shot of one of the guys looking like he's covering his mouth like he's about to vomit. That's... That is some out of bounds, intense additions to a music video. And I think it's brilliant. I think it's what makes this such a great cohesive work. In the footage, and we don't get a Marion Crane here, we don't get a shower scene or anything like that. Instead, what we get is sort of young girl with blonde hair dancing kind of side by side. This is so evocative of the Lady in the Radiator and Eraserhead, especially right down to, because there's something about the Lady in the Radiator that's feels very 50s throwback in a way, which Lynch, David Lynch, such a genius, he was a fan of doing that, of having those sort of retro touches in a modern world, that neo postmodernism kind of thing, like he would just bring it. And this woman has it. She doesn't have the word cotton balls on her face. Then the references get even more really strong when during that aforementioned montage scene, the camera's kind of coming towards her and she looks scared and shocked, and it's completely Michael Powell Peeping Tom. The fact that we have a video that is referencing Eraserhead and Peeping Tom on top of Psycho, I just think is so beautiful. And obviously, whoever made this was an absolute film lover, but also a really talented director who knew how to process those influences and inspirations in a way that doesn't really take you out of place. It all works in this universe, this grotty universe created for this song. If this was a horror film, this would be one of my favorite horror films of the 80s. I think it's just such a standout word. If you listen to the lyrics of this song, this is about a copycat killer. This isn't about Norman Bates. This is about a sad, lonely, and very damaged young man who is basically going to be Norman Bates. He's singing, "I will turn my home into Bates Motel." In addition, you get other great lines like "a man after meat out in the street." Such a fantastically kind of gruesome gruesome song, and the video is pitch perfect. This one really, I think, captures not only the vibe of Psycho the film the most accurately, but even if you want to go down deeper, let's go down to the Robert Bloch book. And I feel like it's got that. Now, with the Hitmen, what's interesting is, you're thinking of, okay, this band whose best known song is a cult kind of post-punk song about a copycat killer who's going to turn their home into Bates Motel. I bet their stuff's really just dark and gruey. And no, not really. The Hitmen did 2 albums. They did the first one, Aim for the Feet. The band, I think, though, came more into their stride with their second and final album, Torn Together, where it's a little more moody. Now, I wouldn't say everything on there is as moody as Bates Motel, but there's definitely, I think it's got more shadows to it. And it's a really, I think, kind of undervalued, unsung post-punk album of the early 80s. I would love to see both of these get a really proper CD remaster. From the little bits I've seen in interviews with Ben Watkins, I do not think his time with that band was very positive. It sounds like there was a lot of outside influence and record company expectation. It's kind of the same old song, unfortunately, where I just think a lot of young bands start out so excited and they end up getting their energy and love for what they're doing just kind of sucked out of them by basically outside influences who are just like out for one thing, and that's the bottom line. There is happiness to the story because every member of this band would go on to do some really cool things, most notably Ben Watkins, who in addition to being in the Flower Pot Men and working with youth from Killing Joke, he formed Juno Reactor. And Juno Reactor is, to me, not a band. It's almost like a musical collective. Juno Reactor is probably best known to a lot of people for being on the soundtrack for The Matrix, but they are so much more than that. Like, if you're into music that has like a lot of world music influence, but also just kind of sounds like the best soundtrack to a film that's never been made but should be made, That's Juno Reactor. And that's me kind of ridiculously underselling them. Ben Watkins is brilliant, though. He's a very, very cool figure. Thank you so much for joining me on this trip, exploring another side of music video history, and in a way, kind of horror history. And maybe you'll be able to leave this video with a new favorite song or music video or artist to explore. But either way, regardless, take care of yourselves. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. Be gentle to yourself. Be good to each other. Take no guff. And I'll see you next time.